guys, so welcome to my YouTube channel. I know it's been a very long time I've been online. Yes, I know, but it's been an interesting first year for my PhD program. As you all know, you've been following me for a while now, but I've been still planning on how to bring out some best content that will help you in this season right now. I believe you're all preparing for your F1 visa, and if not, by the time you chance on this video, which I believe you're also preparing for your F1 visa interview or any other interview that you think you might need some information, we are having an impeccable resource personnel who happens to be an ex-visa officer. So we are going to have what we call in-house information. Let me not waste your time. So let's get right into it. Tada! Energy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. So let me just get right into it. So I'm going to allow my vocable resource personnel just introduce yourself, then we'll get right into it.
Hi everybody, my name is Maggie and I'm a former US visa officer. Now I do consulting work for Argo Visa, and we are a small team of former US visa officers, and we help people to prepare for their visa interviews. And we're in the thick of student visa season right now, so we're doing a lot of outreach to the student visa applicants and letting people know the services that we provide. And I'm happy to be here today to share some tips and tricks, hints that will help you through your student visa interview. Just to introduce myself, a bit about my background. I worked for the US government for over 10 years as a consular officer. And during that time, I lived and worked all over the world. I was posted in India at the American consulate in Mumbai. I also worked in Europe. I was in Canada and also in Washington, D.C. And all in all, I have adjudicated or made decisions on over 25,000 U.S. visa applications during my time with the U.S. government. And during that time, many of those were student visas. So I do have a lot of experience in that area. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much, Maggie. I believe any minute spent with you will be very resourceful for this session. So let's get right into it. So I have some series of questions that I received from my subscribers, and also as we progress, so let's get right into it. One key question that every applicant from, I think it varies with countries, but as an expert, you might give us what you think about it from your experience. So do you think that it is impossible for someone who didn't get scholarship or funding to get his or her visa approved for an F1 visa? Yeah.
I don't think it's impossible, no. In fact, I think it's not many students will have a scholarship, really. That's kind of a rare thing. So I think that it's definitely possible to get your student visa approved, even if you don't have a scholarship or particular funding. I think the main thing is being able to explain to the visa officer where the financial source, where that's coming from. So whether it's a loan or a grant or a scholarship, or maybe your parents have savings, or maybe you yourself have savings, whatever it is that you're going to use to fund your education, you have to be very clear and explain that to them in detail. And I think that really helps.
Thank you so much for that. I think that really helps. And we would also want to find out, is it that decisions are made prior to the interview, or the decisions are made right when an applicant is interviewed?
This is one of the big myths, I think, that surround visas, and this is why myself and my colleagues at Argo Visa, why we got into this business, because there are so many myths out there about visas, about student visas, about you should do this and not that, and make sure this is what's really happening behind the window. And I'm happy to dispel this particular myth. The decision on your visa, any visa, student visa or otherwise, is not made before you walk up to the window. Now, the officer they'll have a chance to look over your application, your DS-160 application, and they'll be reading that through to get a sense about what your situation is like. But they won't make a final decision until after they've talked to you and after they've interviewed the applicant. So there are no prior decisions being made. That's not part of it.
Then let me get right into it. So from your experience, about 25,000 interviews, what do you think when it comes to the F1 visa are some mistakes that some applicants keep repeating, or like that were very consistent across applicants you interviewed that made you supposedly deny them? I'm sure it's beyond you, but so what do you think about that?
So I think some of the biggest mistakes that I used to see were people who they would come in with a pre-planned, pre-rehearsed speech, and they would they would start reciting that speech from memory for me. And I think that they were so nervous, and they thought they just had to say the exact right thing. And so they had memorized something for their visa interview. And I think that the way this comes off to the visa officer is it makes you seem sort of like a robot, not like a real person. And so I think what they really want is to have that conversation with you and to learn what is it about you. Let's hear about your personality a bit. Why do you want to study in the US? Are you passionate about a particular subject? Or, is this going to help you in your future career? Or has it always been your dream to study in America? Whatever it is, I think they want to hear from you. They want to hear your personality. They don't want to hear a pre-planned speech. So definitely avoid that. I think you don't want to be overly deferential to the officer too. I think, and this can be sort of a cultural thing as well. I think sometimes people think, oh, when I come in, I'm speaking to a U.S. government official and I need to be very formal and I need to call them sir or madam, and I need to be very almost overly deferential and respectful to them. And I think that for Americans, we're not a culture that really is very formal. We're a little more casual, a little more, we're just not super, even when dealing with officials, we're not very official. And so what I would say there is just speak to someone like you're speaking to a colleague. You don't have to say, sir, ma'am, you don't have to, because I think that can sort of, you want to sort of project that confidence to the officer. And I think one of the ways that you can do that is to not be overly deferential to them and saying sir and madam constantly. So that was another thing that I would notice among student visa applicants. People are nervous. We understand that happens. It's a big thing. It's a big decision, and it's a very short interview. It's usually only 2 or 3 minutes that you have to really put your best foot forward and really explain to them why you want to study in the US and why this is so important to you. So it's worth putting some preparation in. I think it's worth not just sort of winging it, even if you think that you yourself are a very qualified student visa applicant and you're going to a great school with a great program, you've got great financial backing, you've got everything in order. But truth of it is, you really do have to prepare, because you do have this very short window of time. You've got these 2 or 3 minutes in which to impress the visa officer and tell them about yourself. And it really does pay off if you do some practice ahead of time. And so, that's, if I can do another little plug for Argo, that's what we're here for at Argo Visa. We help people, we run mock interviews, we let them do that practice on us, and then they realize this is how I can better answer that question. You can offer them feedback and say, let's tweak that answer a little bit. Let's try to bring out, we help them identify their highlights, because everybody has these highlights in their case, and they may also have some hurdles, some things that are a little more difficult about their profile. And so how do you bring out your personal highlights to help the officer see that, but then also if you have some hurdles, some things that are a little more challenging in your case, maybe a previous refusal for some reason or something, then how can you frame those? So I think that's what we help people do, is to prepare. So I think preparation is key, and that's something to really think about ahead of time.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you so much. I'm making some interesting notes here. I think you've given us a very detailed explanation here. But on the aspect of we being differential when it comes to visa interviews, I would want you to just give a quick touch on it again, because I would want you to just touch it from dressing and eye contact, and also we using the yes and say. From Ghana, when we look into the eye of an elderly person, growing up, we see that to be disrespectful. You can't talk to an elderly person looking eyeball to eyeball. And I came to America, and that is completely opposite. You have to look straight into the person's eye to exude confidence. Can you confirm that for us, that really helps to show that you are really confident and not nervous? And does dressing really play a role when it comes to visa interview approvals?
So speaking to your point about eye contact, I think you're absolutely right, Kingsford, about that being a cultural difference. And I think that in the visa interview context, you really want to project that confidence, because if you are feeling confident about your visa being approved, that you're a confident student who's going to go to the US and do well there, succeed in your studies, you've got the finances in order, and you're planning to return to your home country, you've got everything going on for you, you really want to project that confidence to the visa officer. And I think that part of that is making eye contact with them. So I would encourage people to go ahead and do that, because I think that if they're sort of staring at their feet the whole time, I think it does come off that they're not confident, that they're not feeling good about their chances, that they're too nervous, etc. And so that makes it more difficult for the visa officer to make that decision about them and to really make a positive decision. So confidence, eye contact, all of that I think you're right about that. And then to your second point about how to dress appropriately. For a lot of students, you haven't yet entered the world of work, so you can't be expected to come in dressed all professional like that. That wouldn't necessarily be appropriate. But at the same time, don't come in wearing ripped jeans and your oldest t-shirt either. I think you should treat it with a certain amount of respect. You do have a very short time to make that impression, and I think even students can look professional, whether it's business casual or just nicer clothes. There's that sort of balance. You don't have to wear a 3-piece suit, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for a student, but also dress nicely. I'd say sort of on the more business casual side of things is what I usually advise people.
I think on that, I don't want us to dwell much on the dressing, but I would want you to just answer this and then you add this to this one. So back in Africa, companies put company attires. So assuming I work with Argo office, I work with Argo Incorporation, and I'm coming for a visa interview. Argo will have, let's say, a company T-shirt or a company, cloth. Back in we're preparing, we heard that it's not good for you to wear some of these things to go for the interview because it paints some signal. You're trying to tell the visa officer that you are really here where it might not be so. So I want to touch on that if you have an experience on that, and also does an applicant school contribute to the person being approved or denied? The rank of the school, does it really contribute? Yeah, these are the two questions I want to ask on that.
Okay, sure. So let's talk about the clothing question. So I think it's fine if you have a business uniform that you wear and you have some sort of t-shirt or logo polo shirt that has your business on it and you're coming from work. It makes sense that you would wear that. And maybe that's a talking point for you. Maybe that's you have this job and you're going to go to the US and do some studies so that you can further your career. So that's one of the things you need to talk about too, is how this degree is going to help you in the future with your career. And so if you have some sort of uniform that signifies what kind of work you do, I think that's great. I think that's a talking point. So I wouldn't necessarily shy away from that, but I also wouldn't go out and buy something that I think you have to be yourself. So I think you have to be yourself. And if you're wearing a business uniform that day because you're working, that's fine. That's totally fine. Your second question about the university and the ranking, I think it absolutely has to come into play because that's part of your profile. So folks who are going to Ivy League schools, say Harvard, etc., that's going to be something that they talk about, is that they got into a great school and this is going to help them in their future career, etc. And those folks are going to be really, really top tier students anyhow. And so that will absolutely be something that they discuss. I think that it comes in, you go down into different tiers of schools. So sort of mid-tier and then maybe lower ranking tier. I think for those, you have to really be very conscious of explaining why this is the right school for you. Because so the folks going to Harvard, it's going to be quite obvious to anyone why they chose that school. But maybe for a mid-ranked school or a lower-ranked school, why was this the right school for you? Why did you make this choice? Maybe there was a great program that you really are excited about and has some great electives that you want to study. Maybe there's a great professor that you have been following for a while, their work, and you really want to work alongside them. Maybe you have a sibling there or someone from your community who knows about this school. I think you have to really make that personal connection as to why you chose that school. So I think it absolutely matters. It's part and parcel of the whole package of your student visa application. And I think just explaining in greater detail. And again, that's something that we can help you with the Argo visa. If you're concerned about how do I frame this, going to a lower ranked school, how can I help explain this to the visa officer? We can help you with that. That's part of what we do.
Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying this, and I'm sure as you also, my viewers, are enjoying this. And don't forget to subscribe. And also, I'll provide a link for Argo, contacting Argo officers right after this session beneath my description.